Lacrosse. Rockstars Girls Lacrosse. The Rockstars Girls Lacrosse Show with hosts Ronnie Davis.
Section 5 finals.
Yes, less games, but the ones we have are.
Over.
Okay. But that does matter. He's still employed.
Absolutely. And so clearly there's several NCAA violations that come into play there. But the question is, and it was asked through Section 5 in the state, is did Spencerport do anything wrong? Was there anything that had to do with Spencerport that violated any rules or regulations? And through the research, it's questionable. It comes up in the state handbook that no player or a player will lose their eligibility for the current season if they play for or against someone else that's representing a college.
Well, the official terminology, I've got it right here. The official terminology is a student is no longer eligible to represent the school in that sport in that season if the student participates in practice or competition with or against any individual or teams representing a college that season. Okay? And I guess the thing that they're saying is in that season. Maybe that's what where the rule might not apply because the season was officially over for Wesleyan, as you stated. But by the words, it doesn't say coaches; it says individuals.
Sure.
And a coach is an individual. So what did you hear about it? What is the ruling on it, and what's going on?
The ruling came back from Section 5 that. So, the NC, Roberts will handle that with Pete Bell. Like I said, he's a great coach. Here's my question though. All right. Even if it's not against the rules, right? For one, I don't know of any team that has ever done that. I mean,
I can't think of one. I can't.
For one, can you imagine if I called Gary Gate and said, "Hey, coach, come coach the rest of my season"? I think people would be in an uproar. So
it would be cool.
Very cool. Very
it would
cool
be
for
cool.
The players.
But like you said, with the codification aside, whether it is or isn't a rule, is it right?
Correct.
And this is where we first have to disclaim, and you sort of did that. This is not to throw any of the individuals under the bus. It's nothing personal, but it happened, and we have to talk about it. And in my opinion, it's not. It's not right. And as it's worded, I'd like to know, did you have the chance to talk to Section 5?
So
have you talked to anybody about it?
No, I did talk to people from the state, the Sports Writers Association,
Okay.
and they too were like, it's not defined well enough to, in one day to, make sanctions against the Spencer Port lacrosse team.
I'm going to disagree. I think it's written plainly, any individual or team, and coach is an individual.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm going to disagree.
And the funny thing is if it wasn't wrong or if it wasn't against the rules, they, Spencerport got rid of him right away. As soon as it was someone acknowledged that, he was gone the same day. So how come he's not still on the sidelines if it wasn't okay? You know what I'm saying?
In all fairness, that could be due to perhaps the appearance of impropriety and not something they want to focus on, or they don't want, everybody to focus on that. They want to focus on the rest of the season, the upcoming championship game. So in fairness, I see that, but I also see the point you're making as far as if it's not a rule, then why isn't he still there?
Why isn't he still there?
Yeah.
But as we do here on the show, I like to go to the bigger picture. Okay.
Yep.
And what I don't understand and what I hear, I hear from parents on the Spencerport team. I try to get all sides of the story. But what I don't understand is, Tricia Condon is a great coach. She's built that program, right? She's had, the last 6 years have been real solid in growth. Why is she allowing someone to come in and now coach her team with 2 weeks left in the season, to do what? Isn't that, I would be offended if that was my case. Now, from what I understand, it's not Tricia that was pushing that envelope, right? It was one of the parents, Jen Kuykendall was pushing the Pete Bell coach on the Spencerport team in order to get through sectionals. And if that's the case, what are you thinking as...
I think you hit the nail right on the head when you said to get through sectionals. They want to get their dub back from you. They're still mad at you for giving them their first L of the season, plain and simple. And that's got to be the only reason. But I think you alluded to, the bigger picture is, why would a coach do that? This is my team, and obviously being a college coach, maybe he has something to offer, but I don't see you doing that.
No,
you're kind of a control freak as far as that goes. You're not going to let somebody else come in for a couple weeks and try to change things up just before the second season.
No, and I would have a hard time with that, and I think my players would have a hard time with that, right? We've been fighting these wars together as a team, and I'm the leader. And like I said, I think Tricia's been doing a fabulous job. She's got my vote for Coach of the Year by far for, having a community of not a lot of kids and playing in the feeder programs and so forth. And she's done a fabulous job. I just don't understand why a parent is able to step in and say, well, now you're going to step aside and we're going to let this guy coach. And that's my opinion on it, that would, be the biggest issue with me at that point is, I'm going to step aside and let this guy come in and coach my team in the playoffs, but I've did all the work.
And I get that. And I think you're confident in knowing that if I saw that while I was calling the game on Chosen Spot Radio, I'd ask you about it. I'd call you about it. I'd call you out on it. I'd wonder, what's he doing? Because you create a culture during the entire season, and then just for a couple of weeks to lead up to sectionals, you want to kind of change that, throw a monkey wrench in that. I get it, but I don't agree with it.
Right, and I don't either. But guess what? I don't coach in Spencerport, and we don't live there. And but we can have our opinion on it because we have our own Rock Stars Girls Lax podcast. So my opinion is keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great. You don't gotta. But like I said, it was a parent pushed issue. I was told by a couple of parents that have players on the team,
sure,
that Aaron Kuykendall's mother pushed for this, and it seems like everything is controlled in Spencerport by Jen Kuykendall, right, by the mother.
Okay.
And based on there's some events happened in the fall with some bullying issues that involved some Spencerport kids after the soccer team beat Mercy for the Section 5 title. They their Halloween uniforms were kids in Mercy outfits, right? with.
I might have heard about that.
And that's just for one, it's no class. But for two, it's like, what are you doing? What are you teaching kids?
That's stepping over the line without a doubt.
It's like I said, it's no class at all. And if you if you're a part of that, then you really got to reevaluate what you're doing. And that goes, that'll come in later on our, when we have a section on our podcast about crazy parents, right?
There's plenty of them out there.
Some of these parents are just out of their minds. I mean,
yeah.
Like I said, who does that? Who dresses their kid up in a Mercy outfit, takes a picture of it, sends it out on Snapchat after you just won a Section 5 championship game? That's a time of celebration, not humiliation, right? You don't want to humiliate the other people. So you celebrate your win, be proud of it, but don't humiliate the other side. And that's just wrong. And, if she was sitting here on the podcast today, I would tell her that to her face. And
I think everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. You, like I said at the end of last podcast, you shoot straight. And that's one of the things I like about you. And as you alluded to, if somebody has a problem about it, they can do two things. Talk to you about it. Mm-hmm. Come up and say what's going on. Or second, get their own podcast.
Exactly.
So then they could talk bad about us.
And we invite you to call in. And Fitz, what's the phone number here? If someone wants to call in, what is it? One more time. 364-6004. If anyone wants to call in and weigh in on what we just talked about with crazy parents.
Well, we haven't got there yet.
Right, and I alluded to it with the one. And talk about, what happened in Spencerport with them bringing in an NCAA coach to kind of push Trisha Condon out of the way and coach the last 2 weeks. Like I said, 364-6004. But we'll move on to the next. We have.
Right on. I'm glad you got that off your chest. Yes, sir.
Hopefully we'll have some callers. We'll get back to it. But let's go into the championship games.
The thing about the championship games that I've been thinking about is we heard some boo-hooing and ballyhooing about we're not the number one seed. We got this seed. We got that seed. Bottom line is they're all chalk. And I think the boys are all too. So the 1 and the 2, they all made it. It all worked out. Mm-hmm. They got it right one way or the other. So in the girls, the number 1 plays the number 2 in all 4 brackets.
Correct.
So, and most of the boys are that way too. I think they all are. And so that's what I want to get to as far as the seeding. Just ride it out.
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. The only ones that are upset about it, I've talked to girls, I've talked to the players, they don't care. They just want to play. Mm-hmm. It's the parents. It's the moms and the dads more than the well, I was going to say more the dads, but I think I heard from more dads than I did moms. They're the ones that are mad about it. They're like, wait a minute, my baby isn't number 1 seed. Let it go. Support them, push them through to the finals, and that's the way it worked out.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that it did work out that way. We saw Class B, we got Pelmac playing Minders, right? They met earlier.
That's D, by the way.
Class D. They met earlier in the year.
Yeah.
Pelmac won by a wide margin.
Yes.
Tough to beat a team twice in a season. Tougher.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think that's going to be, this is Pelmac's run on their 3rd sectional title in a row if they win.
Yeah.
Right. They're going to three-peat if they can get past Minders. And they're playing very, very well. They got Andra Savage. They have Jamie Walker.
Yeah.
They got Emma Arnold. Those 3 are playing really well. But those 3 can't win you a Section 5 title. And as we talked to E.J. Burse, a week or 2 ago, and he said that his main job is to develop the kids around those 3 to give the support. And I liked what he said about that because it's true. You got to, you develop those 3 kids can't win it on their own.
I think they're going to do that, but I've also said from the very beginning that Pelmac will shuffle off to Buffalo, and then they'll go down to Cortland. They'll handle whoever they get because Section 5 has handled Section 6 in the girls lacrosse. I think they've won 1 game in the past, how many, 100 or whatever it is. But,
a lot of games.
So I've called Pelmac from the get-go, and Minders Romulus, I don't think they have an answer for the Trinity or for the support group. They have a good goalie as well, and I just see Pelmac, going to Cortland once again.
Yeah, I agree. Class C, HFL is going to play Eastridge. They already met once this season. The game went into overtime.
That was the HFL. That was HFL's first win of the season.
Yep.
And that was our first of 2 straight. HFL is going to win. HFL. We talked about this when we talked to the coach. We've mentioned this during previous podcasts. They peak at the right time.
Sure.
They get fired up at the right time. They have a small class, only 4 teams to have to deal with. Whatever records are, they're the cream of the 4 teams. Not to besmirch the other 3,
No.
but they're going to win. They'll
Yep.
go to regionals, and they'll probably get through the regionals, and they're going to Cortland too.
However, their regional matchup is a little different this year. With Buffalo. Okay, there's a team out of Buffalo called Lakeshore. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And
Good point.
They started young, and their kids are growing up now. And so I think that you're going to see that whoever in Class C goes, most likely HFL, they're going to have a battle on their hands with a Buffalo team.
Cool. That'd be nice. It would be nice to see. As a student of the game, you don't want to see a 30-0 blowout. You want to see a close game that comes down to the final couple possessions.
And they got some players playing well. They do got some players playing really well. They're still platooning their goalies. We'll see how that works out. But I think HFL is in a good position to go back to Cortland.
Yes, I agree.
Now we're on to Class B.
Yeah, the one you have to tiptoe around.
I do. So in the semifinal games, okay, I did get to the pleasure to watch Spencerport and Brighton play, and Brighton jumped out early. Brighton jumped out to a 3-0 lead early, and Spencerport ended up coming back and scoring some goals. And the one thing that I thought Spencerport did really well is they controlled the game when they were down, which, Brighton, if they get up on you, they're going to, we were sitting next to each other in the booth. I was saying, Brighton's up by 3. You're going to see a lot longer possessions and so forth. But I thought Spencerport did a great job with controlling their possessions when they were down, and they nipped away, tied it up, and then went on to score 4 more. So I think that Spencerport did a great job with that. And that's different from what you usually see against a Spencerport Brighton game.
Kind of beat Brighton at their own game, is what you're saying. Yeah,
they did. They outsmarted them, and they played well. And I thought Brighton, they came out on fire. They 3-0. They were playing really well, and I thought they were going to keep that train going. But Spencerport to their made some really good adjustments, and they got their opportunities, and they finished, and they held on to the ball for good possessions, and they put the ball in the goal. So
now I missed most of that game. I think I showed up late. Mm-hmm. So who is it that out for Spencerport? Didn't Choate have a good game in that?
She did, but I thought the best player on the field was Cameron Sack.
Okay.
Personally,
okay.
I thought that Cameron did a great job on the wings, on the draws.
Okay.
And I think she scored a goal, and she had a couple of assists, and I thought that she did really well in managing the midfield. And Choate did well too.
She had 3 goals.
Natalie
3 goals
Choate.
and an assist. And Kuykendall had one goal.
And it was a beautiful goal. You should have seen the goal. She came around. She was being face guarded, and she kind of used the crease to get free. A great play. She caught the ball, and she ripped it behind her back.
Okay.
It was a great shot. Great placement. You have people saying out there, that's a hot shot. That was a great shot she had.
It doesn't matter what kind of shot it is. When it's one and done, I don't care. You got to get the ball in the goal.
Yep.
Once you find the cage, it doesn't matter how it got there. Unless you're up 20-1.
Correct.
That's a hot dog. But if you're in a dog fight, and this was a dog fight. I mean, it was 4-3 at the half, and then Spencerport outscored them 3-1 in the second to win 7-4.
Mm-hmm.
So that isn't a big game, but that's what you see. That's what you're supposed to see in the semis.
Yeah, I mean, it was close, and like I said, I thought Spencerport just did a better job of managing the game.
Okay,
and to the credit of Trisha Condon, like I said, we talked. She's a great coach.
Yeah,
she coached them through that, and they got some. Like I said, Choate and Sack and Kuykendall, they can hurt you, and they did. Those 3 kids, I thought, were the ones that stepped up and did their jobs, and that's why they were able to come away with the victory.
Well, we'll talk about Spencerport comes up in a little bit because my FLX software top 5 is going to be teams that are I'm going to rank the teams, 5 teams that are still playing.
Yep.
And they will come up. I just think they're too top heavy for you guys. I think you have too much depth. I think Canandaigua defense is too strong. I think you have too strong a goalie. If I have to put their offense against your defense, against Canandaigua's defense, I'm going to pick the Canandaigua defense every time. Your Canandaigua defense is stingy right now. They can carve you up You also have the psychological factor of giving Spencerport their first loss. Both teams have some experience now playing on the turf at Sutherland. And I just think Canandaigua was balanced and too deep to not pull away the dub on Wednesday.
Sure. Well, I hope that's the case. But going into the other semifinal was Canandaigua and Mercy. And, and I've said this before. I don't think that on this podcast that we have given Mercy enough credit. You know,
I agree.
They won the games that they had to get the number 3 seed. They come off and we both, I did pick Mercy over Irondequoit because that was one of my picks last week. And yes, you had Spencerport over Brighton.
Yep.
Or no, was it? What was it? I remember I was at
I don't
Brighton.
think we picked that one.
Oh, Brighton busted up Penfield.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I had Penfield, but Mercy took out Irondequoit, who was on a roll, right? And that with that being said, they deserve their spot in that semi.
They absolutely do, but realistically, they didn't have an answer for you. They didn't have an answer for Herod and the trio at the draw, and they just, the defense again was just too strong. I called that game on Chosen Spot Radio, and I think I gave the player of the game to Lupton. She got, what did she get?
4 or 5 goals.
I think she got 5 goals. So what that shows me is they shut down Bernicki. And you had to go to next man. You had to play next man. And that next man, Lupton stepped up. I think Blakesley had a hat trick.
Yeah, Blakesley had a hat trick.
So just indicative of the depth that you have. But to walk it back, absolutely. I said it earlier in the podcast, maybe the first one, that when we talk about Mercy, we talk about Abby Wambach, and soccer and basketball and that kind of thing. We don't really talk much about them being a lacrosse team. That's because they fly under the radar and they're happy with that. But they're seniors who don't get a lot of play time because it's a young team. They don't get a lot of play time. They chose to be at the game instead of their senior ball. Their prom, their ball, whatever we're calling
Friday
it,
night.
Was that night of the game. And they chose, I think you were telling me, somebody told me that as soon as the game was over, they took off. So it wouldn't surprise me if they went to the senior ball wearing their uniforms. But I just got to I need to give Mercy a shout out to their seniors. Great job in being at the game to support the team, knowing that their goalie is the only senior that really gets a majority of play
time. Right.
Yeah, and they still showed up to be with their team. So shout out.
Yeah, and Mercy's young, as we talked about.
Yeah.
I've known Caroline Murphy a long time. Right, she plays Monster Lacrosse, and it was tough to manage out there. What an athlete she is.
Absolutely.
So, our game plan was, obviously around the 4 kids, Carey and Johnson and Murphy and Harnish-Figure. But she still gave us fits. She still gave us trouble. And so, you're right. A shout out to Mercy. They're very well coached too. I like Anthony Yandak and Peter Bourne. They do a great job. And I think you're going to see Mercy again next year. We're going to have to, when we continue to do this podcast, they're up there now.
They're not going anywhere.
They're going to be in the conversation going forward because they do have some young kids and they're going to be pretty good.
And they've earned that right. I always talk about the difference between demanding respect and commanding respect. Demanding respect is just saying, give it to me, whereas commanding it is earning it, and they've commanded the respect that they're getting being in that semifinal game against you guys as a number 3 seed.
Right. And, what I thought the best thing, about, obviously, I'm coaching Canandaigua. I got a ton of monster kids that play for me.
Yeah.
Right? I got a ton of monster kids that played for Mercy. Right?
It was a party afterward,
It was a huge party.
It was.
And I was, so excited, the pictures that we got from it, and it was so exciting to see all the monster kids. There must have been literally 25 of them, and then all their parents and hugging each other in pictures.
More than that.
Yeah, and it was so great to see those kids come together after, and everyone hugging each other, and and also I couldn't. Every single person I'm talking to is like, take it to Spencerport. Take it to Spencerport. Take it to Spencerport.
Yeah.
So I think, this championship game Wednesday night at 5 o'clock at Pittsford Sutherland between Spencerport and Canandaigua, I'm thinking there's going to be more fans for Canandaigua there than Spencerport.
Well,
I'm hoping.
I want butts in the seats.
Mm-hmm.
But for the people that can't be there, just so you know, it will be on Chosen Spot Radio, as will the boys game. I'm going to go right from Sutherland when your game is done, and then go do the boys game, because the boys are playing Victor. Number 1 and number 2 are playing at St. John Fisher College. So if you want to listen to that game, you can listen at chosenspotradio.com.
Right. And the highlight on the party part after was that, I had to jump in a car and I had to drive to Maryland to coach the Monsters this weekend.
Yes.
But I believe the party moved from Sutherland High School to Fairport Hots, our sponsor, for the top 5 and 5, or top 5 in section 5.
Absolutely.
Because, Joe Kataya, who owns Fairport Hots, his daughter Gianna is a great player going to Penn State on Mercy. And I don't even know if Joe knows, but they took the whole party back and everyone had free garbage plates from what I hear.
Excellent. And Fairport Hots is at 1226 Fairport Road, by the way.
Yeah, great garbage plate.
Absolutely.
I love going over there and getting my plates from Joe over there at Fairport Hots. And he's always a pleasure to talk to if you haven't talked to him.
Well, the only conversation I had with him is during the party, the after game party. They were taking a picture. He was taking a picture of you and a couple of the other Monsters, probably his daughter and somebody else. And I was photobombing, and he goes, "Hey, I can't take it. There's some guy in the back." And I'm like, "Oh, now the Spazman is just a guy."
You're just some
thanks
guy,
a lot, man. So let me take a quick second to talk about the sponsors, if you don't mind, before we get
absolutely.
to Class A. Fairport Hots. They sponsor your top 5 in Section 5. They're at 1226 Fairport Road. My top 5 in Section 5 is sponsored by FLX Software, and that's Nick Sargent, FLXsoftware.com. He, writes programs for software and does websites. And a new sponsor, Keith's Finger Lakes Handyman Services.
Nice.
All right, he's in Canandaigua. You can get a hold of Keith at 585-880-7242. Keith's Finger Lakes Handyman Services. Tell him the Rock Stars G-Lax sent you, and he'll take good care of you.
Good.
There you go.
Yeah, so thank you again to all the sponsors that sponsor the show. Our viewers and our listeners, the number of people viewing and watching is going up and up each week.
It's getting up there.
And we couldn't be happier with everybody listening, and hopefully we're doing a great job because you all keep listening.
Well, I think I think we're doing a great job, and as evidenced by the numbers increasing. The thing is being at noon, a lot of people are at work. They can't join it. So the good thing about this is you can listen to the audio on Spreaker, iTunes. You can watch the video on YouTube at any time as well. So you can open us on one tab and open up another tab. So a lot of the listeners that we don't get during the day. We pick them up after work and at night and, things like that. So
right.
Yeah.
So, I just got a text and from my daughter, and she's with the Katayas right now, actually. We were just talking about them. So, McKenna, if you're listening out there, call 364-6004. We want to talk to you about your game that's coming up on Wednesday against Rush Henrietta. So, 364-6004. Call that number, and I'd like to have a couple words with you on the radio show here about the game coming up.
That's a good segue into the game that we haven't talked about, Class A yet. Mm-hmm. And Pittsford and Fairport battled it out, and something happened after that game, and we need to talk about that, which would segue us into the Crazy Parents segment.
Crazy Parents, right.
Yeah, so why don't you were there, right?
I was.
You saw it. I heard there's video of it. I haven't seen it.
There's video of part of what we have to talk about. But let's start with the game itself, okay?
Sure.
Overtime, double overtime. And Fairport has been getting pounded lately by teams, and now all of a sudden they come back and they're in double overtime against Pittsford. And so a shout out to Fairport, for putting it together and coming out and playing and putting that game in overtime. I thought they played great. I thought they played tough. I thought that they played smart. I thought their coaches did a very good job at managing the game and managing, Pittsford's scores and so forth. So, I would love to have had the Fairport coaches online today to talk about, what did you do from the time your last game when you got beat by Spencerport to that. So we will. Let's get to the phones because I hear McKenna's on the line.
Yeah.
So. McKenna, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, dear. We're here with Craig the Spazman Simmons and
What's up?
myself.
How you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Can you turn the podcast down in the background because we can hear?
Can you
it?
turn the podcast down in the background?
Thank you.
Super.
Hey, McKenna, so you got a big game coming up Wednesday. You and I have not had a ton of conversations in reference to the last game against Fairport that you guys played, and obviously I was away for the weekend and you were home alone for the weekend. My house is still standing, Spaz, by the way.
It is still standing. Windows are all still together, and
They are. And but your last year you guys lost in the semifinals when you were a freshman to Penfield. My words out the door to you this morning. This is both of our first Section 5 championship game. How's the team feeling? How's it look going into the game versus Rush Henrietta?
Wait, what? Sorry, I missed the question.
You're going into the game against Rush Henrietta this Wednesday, okay?
Yeah.
You beat them the first game. This is your first Section 5 championship game, as we talked about. How do you feel about the game coming up, and what are you gonna do anything different than you did last time?
Oh, I'm very confident in our team. We are just going to keep up the same energy we had last game. We're all really excited and looking forward to the game on Wednesday. And I don't think we need to make many changes based on how we played last game. We really just took care of the ball well, made limited mistakes, and we just had great energy throughout the whole game.
Good. Now, your team obviously lost in the Section 5 finals last year, or semifinals last year to Penfield. I don't think you guys saw Penfield coming. You're in the finals this year. Is your team, locked in? Are they mentally ready for this?
Yes, I think we're all mentally prepared for this. Like, we know what we need to do to win the game. I think we know what to do.
your dad has the acumen that he has. He's a national champion 5 times. Is there anything, have you asked him, have you picked his brain at all leading into the game on Wednesday during the season or during the course of your career at all?
I haven't really talked to him that much, but he always is very supportive, and he knows how to help me. Like, he is very helpful with me. Like, even when I don't think I need help, he always knows how to help me out.
So what you're trying to say is sometimes I put my nose in where it doesn't belong?
Sometimes, but usually it works out for the best in the end.
That was the diplomatic answer. The
It
diplomatic way of saying that.
She's a diplomatic person unless she's at home. So, all right, kid. Hey, once again, good luck this Wednesday. I will see you home for dinner tonight, and thanks for coming on the show.
Of course. Bye.
Yeah, she's like I said, last year as a freshman, they lost against Penfield.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
she took that kind of hard, and this year I think that she's a year older. The kids on the team, they only got a few seniors, so they're still a young team, but they're all grown up together. And I think that you're going to see Pittsford come out with a lot of energy on Wednesday night against Rush Henrietta.
They're playing very well, and we will once again bring them up in my top 5 in Section 5 when I rank the teams. They're just playing very well. And Casey Mooney hit the winner.
She did.
Yeah.
Casey had the game winner, and
With a feed from Ellie, I believe.
correct.
Yeah.
Ellie gave her the ball, and Casey went to the goal and scored. But the funny thing is people are saying, well, Pittsford didn't play that well, and that's not the case. Pittsford played well. Fairport played really well, and they were led, by Morgan Schwab. She had a couple goals that you shake your head at when you see this, this kid. But all the girls on Fairport, it just wasn't the Morgan Schwab show. It was every kid out there was out there giving it all they had to compete. And when you got a game like that, it's tied and it goes in overtime. It could go either way, right? The ball bounces one way or the other. It could go either way. And I thought, fortunately for Fairport, for Pittsford, my daughter, it went Pittsford's way, but it could have went either way. And no matter what, one side's going to be not happy about it. But I think that I'm excited for the championship game because it's at 7:00 on Wednesday, and I can play the Canandaigua game and then go watch the Rush Henrietta Pittsford game.
Yeah.
And I think that, I don't think Rush Henrietta is coming in overconfident. They've been working really hard. They lost the first game against Pittsford, and we talked about the reasons why Pittsford would beat them. I was at that game, and I thought the midfield was dominated by Mooney and the Sampone twins over Mashesky, Rachel Crane, and Maddie George. But I'm sure that those three midfielders, who are all Division I kids, top Division I kids, great lacrosse players, are going to want their say this time. So I think it's really set up for a really good battle.
I think it's going to be a good battle. And before I get to my pick of who's going to win that, I want to walk it back real quick. You had mentioned Morgan Schwab from Fairport and how well Fairport played. I believe when we interviewed Morgan, she was one of the players who said it comes down to who wants it more. And I just think when you come in against a team like Pittsford, when you come in that situation, that tests your mettle and that gets you riled up. And Fairport just said, hey, we want it, so we're going to go in and try to take it. And they almost did. But to pick between Pittsford and Rush Henrietta, I'm going Pittsford's they're just playing too well right now. They started out slow, started out the season, and they had people thinking, oh, man, they're going to be off. Right. They're going to be off. But how many have they won in a row? They've won 11 in a row now.
Yeah. So
they're Pittsford. I'm just going with Pittsford.
I'm going with Pittsford, too. I think that Pittsford is going to play really smart, and I think that at the end that they're going to come out on top. And the thing is, also, if it comes in, the difference between Fairport and Pittsford in that overtime is that Pittsford has won some overtime games, right?
Yeah.
So Pittsford knows how to win. They did that. I think, and we talked about that before, you got to know how to win. You got to learn how to win, and I think that might have been the difference in the overtime in that game. But if Pittsford and RH get into a battle, they both know how to win. So it's going to be a great game.
Well, I liken things to, movie scripts. And you can't script this better. And quick trivia, those two teams are the ones you lost to by a goal in double overtime. You lost to Rush Henrietta. You had a lead with 10 minutes left. You had a 4-goal lead. And then they had some free position opportunities that they took advantage of. You had Pittsford. You had Pittsford on the ropes at the half. You lost to them in double overtime by a goal. So just to throw that out there, that's very interesting. A lot of this stuff you can't write yourself any better than it's fallen out.
And it was such a great game, the Fairport Pittsford game. It was such a great game, and emotions were high. And then
here we go.
An episode happened.
Tune in.
And I got a lot of feedback on this. I've talked to a lot of people on this, and I even gave one of the people we're going to talk about, I tried to reach out to see if they want to give their side of the story. But what had happened during the game, okay, there was 4 people involved in this, I say, in the whole thing.
Yeah.
There was 2 players, right, who are out there playing really, really hard,
yep.
right? Ellie Mooney and Elena Eichmann. Elena Eichmann for Fairport, Ellie Mooney for Pittsford. And they battled all game. And I'm a big Elena Eichmann fan, right? And as you know, I'm a big Ellie Mooney fan.
Oh, yeah.
They both play real hard. Elena's going to Cortland to play hockey. Ellie's going to Notre Dame to play lacrosse. Right?
That's awesome.
So you got 2 teams that are battling it out, and you got, Fairport's best defensive player and playing against Pittsford's best offensive player. Well, better matchups, right? If you look on the video, okay, Eichmann gives Mooney a butt end, okay? I didn't, it wasn't earth-shattering, right? But, it was a cheap shot, right? The ref didn't see it, but if you go back and look on the video, it's there. So,
okay.
Elena's got to take responsibility for the shot, but, she's a hockey player. She's a tough kid, and they were in the heat of the battle. And I'm sure that Eichmann had gotten, elbows all game from other players on the Pittsford, right? But she butt-ended her in the side. So then after the game, the Mrs. Mooney, Ellie's mom, decides to voice her displeasure to the Fairport coach right after the game, right after Fairport lost. Okay. So now we got Eichmann over here with the butt end. Now you got Mrs. Mooney over here to the left with approaching the coach right after went about something that she probably should not have approached the other team's coach.
Now, before we get to that, let's set the table just a little bit. What happened as a result of the butt end? Was there anything? Did Mooney sell it? Did she try to get the call? Was there a call? Was there anything in game that might have led to what we're about to talk about with Mom?
So there was no call. Okay. But who am I or anyone else, for that matter, to give an opinion on what Ellie Mooney felt, right? I mean,
yes.
she definitely, was favoring her side. They took a minute. They had to take her off the field, not on a stretcher, but she was vomiting. But the fact of the matter is, there's a lot of people out there making opinions about how Ellie felt, and I think that is completely wrong.
It is. It is. Sell job, sell
she's
job.
like, oh, she's faking it.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? I go, not one person knows how she feels right now.
Okay.
So you cannot, it's not your right to give your opinion on how she's feeling. So if we just stick to the facts, right? Yeah, she got butt-ended. That's on video. You can see it, right?
Okay.
It's plain as day. How hard that butt end was, nobody knows that, right? So, but they were both fighting. You can't. It was a cheap shot, but it wasn't a. The game was still tied at that point, right?
Okay.
So it's not like it was frustration. We lost butt end.
That's what I was wondering. What could have led up to the actual butt end?
It was
maybe a little giving it back because, like you said, maybe she was eating some stuff earlier on.
I think she was just defending her space, right?
Okay.
She's entitled to that space, and she gave it to her.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
Now, as a hockey player, she should know that, that carries, in hockey, that would have carried a 5-minute penalty plus a 10-minute misconduct.
It does.
Right?
It carries a little bit of weight.
Yeah, butt end especially.
Yeah.
But, that two kids, great athletes playing against each other, who's the judge, right?
Doing battle.
Right.
So get back to mom.
Mom approaches in a civil manner, I'll say, right?
Okay.
Mom approaches the Fairport coach and just says, "Hey, listen, this is what my daughter told me happened. Just wanted to explain to you what had happened." So then Coach Lopez sees those two talking, and it wasn't a heated conversation at all. It was very civil. But Coach Lopez then jumps in. Obviously, he wanted to diffuse the situation. There's no way that he can sit there and let one of his parents talk to the opposing coach.
Agreed.
Right?
Yes.
So, but like I said, the conversation was still very civil at that point. And I've heard that from Coach Lopez. I've heard that from that side, that it was still civil at that point. And then comes Eichmann's father.
In comes dad. Okay.
Right?
And dad's all fired up.
Well, I would be too. If you're over there, you're talking about my child.
Yep.
Right? I would like to be a part of the conversation.
And he's lawyering up. He is going to lawyer up for his daughter.
He is. So he goes in and I guess the first words out of his mouth, if you want to talk crap about my daughter, I'm right here, right? Talk it to me, right?
Okay.
And it was still civil at that point, but the heat rose, right? And now it's a big scene. Now it's, yelling and screaming and so forth. So I think it's important to talk about it. It's over, right? It's done with. But, I see wrong in all aspects of it, right? The butt end was wrong, but they're kids. They're in a heated competition.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Like I said, it wasn't done out of frustration. Tie game. You're not frustrated yet, right? So I get that part. Yes, Mrs. Mooney should not have approached the other team's coach or team or anything like that.
Not at that point, for sure.
At that point, the 24-hour rule has to be in, but that's something that she needs to go over with Coach Lopez or the Pittsford athletic director.
That is their turf to make that that distinction.
So
yes.
There's some wrong on obviously Elena's part. There's some wrong on Mrs. Mooney's part, and now there's some wrong on the Eichmann's part. But at first, there wasn't any wrong on Mr. Eichmann's part because he's just coming in defending his child, right?
Sure.
About being talked about. But after that, he went from A to Z with, spouting off
0 to 100.
0 to 100, in front of everybody, and the words coming out of his mouth, and I've got this from several people, was, you won the game, you should be happy, you privileged Pittsford, this and that.
Then it gets personal.
Now it's like, wait a second, I live in Pittsford. Well, what did I have to do with any of this?
Yeah.
Right? So
that's frustration. That's also personal. When I'm officiating, Ronnie, don't make it personal. The second you make it personal, you're out.
Right.
Don't make it personal. Keep it to what's going on the field and in the moment. Don't make it personal.
Exactly. And like I said, I think that all parties involved were wrong, right? But the way it was handled, I think they all got to take responsibility for it, for themselves. And that's my outside opinion looking in. But leads into the crazy parents, I mean, the stereotypical, insults about you're from Pittsburgh, you're rich, you're privileged is, borderline asinine.
You need two
Right?
schools. You're so
Right.
big and you
It's
have
like-
so much money.
And it's just so unfair to everybody that had, to listen to that, right? And I know he's heated, and I don't know him very well at all. I wouldn't know him if he walked into me in a supermarket. But I'm a big fan of his kid. I think his kid's a really, really good player.
Yeah.
And she's actually in my, top 5 this week because she's a good player.
Okay.
However, I don't agree with what she did with the cheap shot.
Spoiler.
But the fact of the matter is that the parents have got to understand that they signed their kids up for playing a lacrosse tournament, game, league, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Parents need to keep their opinions and stay out of it. Period. The parents are ruining this sport. And I see
think parents are ruining every sport. It's why I will not officiate beyond youth softball. That's it. I used to do baseball, basketball. I did everything. I won't do it anymore. I just won't do it anymore. And some other officials will go, oh, you got to have a thicker skin. It doesn't have anything to do with the thicker skin. It has to do with, I just don't want to be in that situation anymore. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable. Parents have gotten to the point where they think they're protecting their kids when all they're doing is living vicariously through them. I understand that you disagree with a call. You might not appreciate that Coach A is not playing your kid as much as you think they should, but that's not. Just be a parent, relax. And also, when you come to me with a complaint as an official, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Okay, I ran a guy just last week at a youth game because he kept implying I was being unfair. Okay, and he wouldn't stop chirping the entire game. And then he got on me one more time about being unfair, and I said, that's it. You're making it personal, sayonara. And you just go ahead.
Yeah.
Crazy parents they're ruining all sports.
They're nuts, and
Not all of them.
Not all,
but
parents,
they're out there.
But let me tell you, the ones that you never think though. Also, it's
Often,
they're
yes.
they're closet crazies, right? You
Closet crazies.
Closet crazy. You
I
think
like
that
that.
they're reasonable when you talk to them. They're right. But as soon as it has anything to do with their kid, they go right off the deep end.
Yeah, 0 to 100.
And it's
Yeah.
just, and they're ruining. I spent the whole weekend in Maryland, and I watched. The Monster Club team went down to play in the NGLL championships, right? National Girls Lacrosse League, and it's a big honor to go to this tournament, right? Because it's the best from California, the best from Florida, and my 24 team with current 7th graders, they ended up going to the championship against M&D Black from Maryland, who's the host, and they're probably M&D is probably the best team in the country. They're loaded. They got a great team. And my little 24 team got blasted, right? I think it was 13-0. They didn't score a goal, and they're a really good team. And when it was like 11-0, right? 5 minutes left in the game, someone yells out, "Put a fork in them." Really? I'm like, you really had to say that?
Yeah.
I mean, these poor kids are, it's 100-degree heat. They're put a fork in a 7th grader, and it's 11-0 at this point. And you just look around and you're like, what is wrong with you?
We've lost social decorum. We've lost manners. We've lost the ability to think what is or isn't. And we're inherently selfish. As people, as humans, Ronnie, we're inherently selfish. But that's a narcissistic thing. That's ego. And I think I've always called it competitive parenting. My kid's a better player than yours. That means I'm a better parent than you. That means I have a bigger ego than you. And that means I can, don't besmirch and talk down to others just to make yourself look better. And that's unacceptable. Did anybody say anything to this individual?
I know. But it was nonstop with these parents, but on both sides. I mean, all weekend, all I heard was parents yelling and screaming at their kids. And, I heard one parent yell out to their kid, "Jesus Christ, what are you doing out there?"
Yeah.
Like, seriously?
Yeah. And what age group is this? What are we talking
this
about?
This was 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade.
12, 13, 14-year-olds.
Three different divisions. And like I said, just to be there is a privilege. And the parents, they think it's their right, and you're right. They're living vicariously through these kids. And it's just, I'm just shaking my head going, this is just crazy.
Well, I've posted endlessly about this thing, and you're ruining the game. You're making you're embarrassing your child, and you're making yourself look like an idiot. And anybody who doesn't think you're an idiot is being an idiot with you, because anybody who would think you're looking like an idiot has a clue. And they're like, I don't want to be that guy. So just calm down. Calm down. Everybody thinks with, their next kid with this whole or with this whole scholarship thing for college, their next kid is good. Every kid is going to get $40,000 to go and play in the Ivy League or something like that. And just let them play. Let them enjoy themselves. The officials, as a coach, you ride the officials, but they're still human. They're still human. They're not,
They're still someone's father or mother or grandparent or whatever. They're still someone's, someone loves them, right? And by attacking them, you're just, you're insulting someone else.
You're also teaching your kids to do that. That's what the coach's job is. Let the coach get into the officials. Encourage your children. And also do not talk about strategy in game, because when I'm doing basketball, I've got a player that needs Ritalin, right? And it's zipping up and down the floor, and I'm trying to control them, and their dad is going, come on, hustle, pick it up. But, no, that's the exact opposite of what I want.
You want to calm them down.
Yeah, so let the coaches coach. You see the signs everywhere. Let the coaches coach, let the refs ref, and you just encourage your kids. Say, way to go, hustle, work hard, that kind of thing. But
refuse to do it. They just, like I said, the closet ones are the best. The closet ones are the ones you don't expect.
I love that. The closet crazies.
I have 260 kids in my monster program, and it's just nonstop. I mean, some of these parents, and the biggest thing is they're comparing. They compare their kid to the other kid.
Yeah.
Right?
And that puts pressure on their kid, because if they're doing it in a game or two other individuals, they're doing it in the van on the way home. They're doing it at home. Mm-hmm. That's happening.
So the best part was that, like I said, my 24 team, right? They got beat 13-0. They didn't score a goal, and I'm laughing to myself thinking, these parents this time, they don't have anyone to compare their kid to about starting or whatever, because they just, every kid on the team just got blasted. My top 3 scorers didn't score a goal.
Yeah.
So in a competitive situation, they can be like, well, my kid should have been in over that kid or whatever. In this situation, they didn't score a goal. The poor team, right? And after the game, I said to the team, I laughed. I went over and talked to them. I said, first thing I said was, what, man, did you guys just get your butts kicked? And then they all smiled.
You got shellacked. You can't run away from it. Listen, let's get to the top 5 in Section 5.
Okay, let's get it done. Who's going first?
Oh, I thought Fitz was going to play the.
Oh, that's right.
All right, so I don't know. I think I went first last time. You go.
All right, so you're going to do teams today, right?
I am going to do teams, but you're going to do the Fairport Hot top 5 in Section 5.
Yeah. So right off the bat, my number 5 this week goes to Lexi Ruff from HFL.
Okay.
She scored a couple handfuls of goals. She's been playing real well lately, and I think that HFL, she's going to help carry HFL into the playoffs. So she's number 5 for me this week. My number 4 is going to go to the 3 amigos from Pelmac.
Okay.
They're still consistently night in and night out. Jamie Walker, Andrew Savage, and Emma Arnold are being real consistent carrying.
I think that's the word to use for them, consistent.
Their teams into that.
Yep.
My next player is from Spencerport, Cameron Sack. Like I said, I thought she did. I watched that game, and I thought that she did all the little stuff that meant so much to that team. Getting ground balls. She had a couple key ground balls off the draws that she got.
Okay.
That could have, were definitely momentum swings. So I thought that, and she did real well defensively. She's a very good defensive midfielder. So I thought that she's definitely worthy of a top 5 spot this week.
Okay.
The other one is the second time I'm putting this kid up there, right? And if you would have asked me before the season, I would have said, there's no way this kid's going to be in the top 5 of this. But Grace Sensible, the goalie for Pittsburgh,
Okay.
I thought really stepped it up for them. So, I got to give it to her. She played great against Fairport. She made some really key saves. She had Morgan Schwab firing the ball at her, and I think she made some really key saves. So I got to
Excellent.
give that to Grace.
Okay.
And then, the co-play, I'm going to do the co. I'm going to Morgan and Elena Eichmann. Morgan does the scoring. Morgan, does a lot for that team. But besides the butt end, besides that, which I'm not thrilled with Elena on, but like I said, it's the heat of the moment. I think that her and Morgan round out my top 5 with the players like that.
Okay.
But I can't take the Moonies out of that conversation either. Okay, so you had Morgan and Elena on one side, you had Casey and Ellie on the other. Casey and Ellie both racked up a lot of points, controlled that game. I thought Ellie Mooney I thought they were the difference maker in overtime, because obviously Ellie gave the ball to Casey. Casey scored the goal.
Yeah.
So my 2 pairs to round that out are Morgan Schwab and Eichmann on the Fairport side, and the Mooney sisters on the other. They without the Mooney sisters on in that game, Fairport wins it.
Works for me. That was the Fairport Hots.
Fairport Hots.
They are at 1226 Fairport Road. And now for the FLX software, top 5 in Section 5, FLXsoftware.com. 5 teams. I'm going to rank 5 of the 8 teams that are left.
Okay.
That are still playing. My number 5, HFL. The Cougars, they're the number 1 seed in Class C. They're seeming to hit on all 8 cylinders at the right time.
Yep.
HFL. Okay, and again, that's not to throw anybody else under the bus, but HFL, that's not to throw Eastridge, Pelmac, or Miners Romulus. I think of those 4 teams, HFL would beat the other 3.
Sure.
Okay. Number 4, Spencerport. Number 1 seed in Class B. They give up 6.1 goals per game. They're 3-2 in their last 5. I'm just going to go with Spencerport. I think they're top heavy. I think Spencerport's top heavy. If they had more depth, they'd move up the list just a little bit. Number 3, Rush Henrietta. Number 1 seed in Class A. They give up 7.5 goals per game. I'm a big defensive guy, and I think 7.5 goals per game is too much to be listed any higher or above the next 2 top teams. Okay? So 3 is Rush Henrietta. And here's the thing, folks. Before we did this, I challenged Ronnie to guess my top 5, and he got 4 of them right. He missed number 5. But number 2, Pittsburgh, the number 2 seed in Class A. They've given up 6. They give up 6.5. But they've also won 11 in a row. I think they're strong. I think they're consistent. They're also persistent. I just think they're banging on all 8, and they need to be where they are. Number 1, Canandaigua.
The Braves.
Way too much depth. Way too much depth. And people are going to say, oh, that's just because you're from Canandaigua, and you have nothing to do with that. So people are going to go, oh, it's just bias. It's not bias. It's just what I've seen. And right now, I would put your midfield against anybody. I would put your defense against any offense. Quinn Tallman is a stud in goal. And again, that's not to throw anybody else under the bus. And your offense, they were much more patient. Laurent Blakesley is banging on all 8. They shut down Bernicki. Mercy did. So you brought Lupton in, or Lupton stepped up, knocked down 5 goals. Just too much depth. And your defense is giving up just 6 goals a game. Okay, so defensively, they give up the fewest. Offensively, I'm not sure how many. I think you score, maybe 10 or 11 a game. Mm-hmm. And just right now, I think I'm a fan of the credo. Offense sells tickets. Sure. Defense wins championships. I'm a big defensive guy. And right now, I would put Meg Ellis and Cepas and all of your girls and Tallman, I would put your defense up against any offense.
Sure.
And now, you did lose to Pittsburgh. You did lose to Rush Henrietta, but that was in double overtime by 1 goal, and you had them in hand leading up to the final waning moments.
Yep.
So Canandaigua,
and those
my
were,
number 1.
Those were early games, and I guess it is the Canandaigua right now. We had practice this morning, okay, and for the first 15 minutes, we sat there and I didn't give a motivational speech, right? What I wanted to tell them was about my weekend, right? So for 10 or 15 minutes, we sat and we talked, and I told them about every episode that happened this weekend.
Sure.
Right. And I meant this from the bottom of my heart because it was a weekend just full of great things, and then I had some parent issues and some wins and
so
losses.
much.
My teams ended up going 7 for 15 for the whole weekend, all 6 teams, right? So, but 2 of my teams went to the championship in the A divisions, right? So I was happy that they didn't win it, but I told my Canandaigua team, I said, it wasn't a great weekend for me because I had to deal with so much, but part of the reason why that I didn't have a great weekend is because I missed them. I missed my Canandaigua team so much this weekend and couldn't wait to get back to practice this morning to get back at it because these kids come every day with smiles on their face and they are soaking it in like a sponge. They want it so bad. And they are just looking at me like, Coach, just tell us what to do. Tell us which wall you want us to run through.
I was just going to use that analogy that they'll run through a brick wall for you.
They will. And I just love them so much. And I missed them. And
awesome.
Then we just had a great practice.
That's awesome.
So it was great. But.
Well, like I said, one more time, if I can, on Wednesday, I will be broadcasting both games on Chosen Spot Radio. I got to give one more shout out. Fitz has given us the 2-minute
let's
warning.
Go. Fitz got to get to a parade.
Yep. Keith's Finger Lakes Handyman Services in Canandaigua, 585-880-7242. Fairport Hots at 1226 Fairport Road and FLX Software at flxsoftware.com.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening this week. Like I said, if anyone has any questions or anything, you're more than welcome to email us, call us. We will be back here next Monday at noon with the Rockstars Girls Lax podcast, talking about all the games for the championship games this week and what's leading into the state qualifiers. So thanks so much, and apologize if we offended anyone, but I guess that's what we do, right? I don't either. I don't either.
Offense is taken, not given.
Right. So thanks so much. We'll see y'all next week.
See ya. Right on.
Rockstars. Rockstars Girls Lacrosse. Rockstars Girls Lacrosse. The Rockstars Girls Lacrosse Show with hosts Ronnie Davis and Craig Spazman Simmons.